Good afternoon, everyone. We are excited to be with you today for this webinar, Sustaining the Field, Understanding and Supporting the Teachers Who Power Our Schools. While we give a few minutes for everyone to join, we'd love to see who's in the room. So if you could use your chat function to share your name, your role and organization, and the name of your favorite teacher with some information about what made them so special. They could be any teacher that you had throughout your life within formal education or otherwise. We will get started at 3:34. So thank you for waiting and for sharing in the chat. You can look at the slide deck once it's up and the questions will be there. Again, your name, your organization and role, and who was your favorite teacher and why. So again, thank you for choosing to be with us this afternoon. On behalf of the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools, welcome to Sustaining the Field, Understanding and Supporting the Teachers Who Power Our Schools. For those of you who are just joining, we've been sharing in the chat our names, role, and organization, and also bringing in the presence of our favorite teachers and sharing a little bit about why they were so special to us. So thanks for those of you who have shared. I think we're going to close the chat shortly, and I'm going to just make some remarks to get us started, beginning with interpretation. So we are providing simultaneous Spanish interpretation today to make the session accessible to our Spanish speakers. To select that language, you're going to click on the globe at the bottom of your Zoom window. And if you prefer to just hear the Spanish interpretation, you're going to mute original audio. And I'll say this in Spanish. Bienvenidos a todos que están aquí para aprender juntos. Vamos a tener interpretación en español. Para tener acceso a esa interpretación, seleccione el globo que está en la pantalla, en la parte baja de su pantalla de Zoom. Seleccione español o Spanish. Y si solo quiere escuchar la información en español, puede seleccionar Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Gracias. Si tienen preguntas acerca de eso, pueden hacerlas en el chat y alguien le va a ayudar. Also, this webinar is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is @PartnershipLA. I think someone will put that in the chat as well. The recording will have Spanish interpretation available too. And after this presentation today, we will be sending out the slide deck as well as the recording. And with that, I will start by introducing myself. My name is Angelica Salazar. I serve as Vice President of Policy and Advocacy at the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. I am a former teacher in LA Unified. I taught 6th grade and 8th grade, math, science, social studies, English. Then I pivoted in my career to become an advocate for educational equity in the nonprofit sector. And part of what I get to do now is advocate to remove barriers for teachers and teacher candidates who want to enter the workforce and stay in the workforce to serve like so many of you who are present here do. To share what I put in the chat, I shared about, actually, I actually didn't write this. I'll tell you what I would have written. Mrs. Starzinski was my 8th grade teacher, one of my favorites. She was from Chicago. She always wore a shoulder padded blazer. She was very passionate about history and literature and exposed me to a lot of great books. She also pushed us all on stage, exposed us to musicals and performing. And one of the performances that I played was that of a Al Gore vice presidential candidate in 1996 in a mock election. And that experience and all of them really taught me to believe in myself. So I remember her fondly. Before we go deeper into our topic for today, I want to share the mission of the partnership. We transform schools to revolutionize school systems, empowering all students with a high-quality education. The Partnership for Los Angeles Schools is one of a few nonprofits in the country that co-manages public schools with the school district. We collaborate with LAUSD to serve nearly 14,000 students across 20 high-need schools in Boyle Heights, South LA, and Watts. It's a unique model where we aim to strategically support our school leaders and our teachers to sustain and achieve with their students, transform the school experience for families too, and address the system-wide challenges based on our network learnings and a commitment to equitably resourcing our schools. In our effort to advance systems change and strengthen the teacher workforce specifically. Today, we are presenting you with information from 2 new partnership publications about teachers. A portion of the webinar will cover our first publication, which is a fact sheet by the numbers, the state of LAUSD teacher workforce. This looks at publicly available LAUSD data on teacher demographics, satisfaction, and preparation to help us understand how our systems can further support our teachers and, by extension, our students. Then we'll cover Beyond Year One, Supporting New Teachers to Stay and Succeed, where we spotlight what our network has learned about supporting new teachers specifically. We're excited that our network has brought together a panel of teachers, coaches, and principals to share their experiences and perspectives on what needs and solutions are opportunities for us to reach school and system transformation. We hope to build an understanding of staffing inequities that some students face in LAUSD high-need schools, recognize barriers that teachers or teacher candidates face as they work to enter or stay in the profession, and ultimately improve teacher support and retention. We'll end with some action planning so that we can all leave today's webinar with at least one thing that we can do to make a difference with and for our teachers. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to my wonderful colleague, Nadia Razi, who is going to walk you through the first of our 2 publications, which is our fact sheet focused on the state of the LAUSD teacher workforce by a few numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelica, and hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here after a school day and to discuss these publications. My name is Nadia Moshtaq Razi. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Research and Policy at the Partnership for Los Angeles Schools. Before working in policy, I taught high school English and Avid for 10 years. And though I never thought I would leave the classroom, my path has brought me to work that's very close to my heart, including fostering culturally affirming and anti-racist school environments for students and teachers, and working toward increased recruitment and retention of teachers of color. To answer our check-in question, my favorite teacher is Mrs. Mary Roselli, my friend and former colleague who teaches AP US History and AP Psychology in the Bay Area. I learned so much from her about what it means to be a life-changing teacher, the kind that leaves a mark on your students for years to come. To balance high standards with loving support, to continually reflect and grow as a professional, and to know that it's okay to reveal what a nerd you are to your students. That passion for the subject matter and for learning itself makes teaching and learning so much more fulfilling. We're excited to share our new fact sheet by the numbers, the state of the LAUSD teacher workforce, which uplifts state and local data to serve as a starting point in understanding some important indicators about our teachers and advocating for policies that effectively support them. In creating this fact sheet, we discovered bright spots as well as areas of improvement among LAUSD data, including assignment data, vacancies, retention, satisfaction, and salaries. As I go through the fact sheet, please feel free to add your questions using the Zoom Q&A function, and I hope we could get all of your questions answered today. All right, to set the framing for this section, we are sharing some thoughts and guiding questions while we look at publicly available data. In the recent publication, Every Classroom, Every Child, Lasting Solutions for California's Teacher Shortage, EdVoice Institute and the California Teachers Matter Coalition remind us that research shows teachers are the single most important school-based factor impacting the overall learning and success of students in the classroom. Teachers are such a critical part of the learning experience, so we look to the data to see how they're being developed, supported, and retained. We know the data we share cannot tell the full story of the health of the teacher workforce, but as my colleague Angelica wrote in EdSource last year, actionable and publicly accessible teacher data systems are critical in our long-term quest to effectively and equitably staff schools. It's imperative to leverage data, as well as the stories and questions they raise, into actionable change to support teachers. With that said, keep in mind these questions as we walk through the data. In a moment, we're going to open a poll so you can share which of the guiding questions you're most interested in learning the answer to. What is the most relevant or interesting to you or your work? So first, we have what data publicly exists that would allow us to assess the health of the workforce and identify opportunities for improvement of teacher preparation, support, and retention. Does access to fully prepared and appropriately assigned teachers vary across racial and ethnic demographics, language, and income levels of student groups? What data points, if available, would complete the picture of the reality of the teaching profession and provide more transparency into improvement efforts? And finally, what opportunities do we have to engage in advocacy at the district and state level? We will keep the poll open for a couple of more seconds. Thank you, those of you who are giving feedback in the chat. All right. Okay, so it looks like the highest number of responses are for the first question. So what data publicly exists that will allow us to assess the health of the workforce and identify opportunities for improvement of teacher preparation, support, and retention? Great. So this is definitely we're definitely going to be touching on it. We'll be talking about it first, actually, so coming right up. But don't worry, we will be exploring all of these questions today, and we also have the Q&A function to continue the conversations. I see from the chat that we have a good mix of participants today in our audience, so I'm glad we'll be viewing the fact sheet through multiple lenses. Okay. All right, so like I said, if you voted for question number 1, here's where we'll kind of start getting into what publicly available data exists. So Teaching Assignment Monitoring Outcomes, or TAMO data, is a relatively new publicly available data report from the California Department of Education. Getting this data began as an issue of student access to basic conditions of learning. In addition to needing a school building in good repair and instructional materials, which we argue should be high quality, students also need a teacher who is well prepared to help them learn. By examining the data, we can see the degree to which students in California have access to teachers who have met statewide credentialing requirements for full preparation. We can also see where that access is higher or lower and where there may be equity concerns. TAMO does not tell us everything we'd like to know about teacher effectiveness or the teacher experience, but it does spark a conversation about where to possibly invest more in building teacher pipelines, training, incentives, and other supports to ensure that we are equipping our state, regional, and local workforces to serve our students well. TAMO reports on 4 main categories and teaching credentialing and assignment: clear, out of field, intern, and ineffective. Just a note that there are also additional categories: incomplete, unknown, and not applicable, which make up a small percentage of data, which is why the numbers you'll see on this slide won't all add up to 100%. So let's get into these 4 categories. The one that you see on the slide right now, clear. In this context, this is the goal: to have as many teachers as possible to be fully credentialed and properly assigned, ideally distributed equitably across schools. This is the overall category of TAMO, which tells us whether a teacher is credentialed in the subject area, instructional setting, and the students being taught. A school or district's clear percentage will decrease as the other 3 categories increase. And I'll give you some examples for each of those in a moment. In LAUSD, over 22,000 teachers, or 83.2%, are classified as clear, just under the California average of 84.4. Just a note here that 100% isn't really realistic because there are always going to be teachers on leave, teachers in training, and inevitably some teachers who fall under these 3 other boxes. So what does it look like if a teacher isn't clear and how can it affect student learning? A teacher classified as out of field has a valid teaching credential, but is assigned to teach a subject or a student population that they are not fully credentialed to teach. In these in these cases, the teacher would get a waiver to teach a class that they're not credentialed to teach. This could look like a PE teacher assigned to teach history, a general education teacher assigned to teach special education, or a teacher without an English learner authorization assigned to teach an ELD course. This gives us information about which students are being taught by someone who hasn't officially proven subject matter expertise. The LAUSD out of field average is 3.6%, about 950 teachers, and the California average is 3%. An intern teacher is someone who is in the process of completing their credential program at the same time as they are completing their first year as a teacher of record. An internship is similar to student teaching in that both are enrolled in a teacher preparation program, but intern teachers are paid a full salary and do not have a mentor teacher in the classroom with them. The LAUSD intern average is 4.8%, about 1,300 intern teachers, which is higher than the California average of 2%. A teacher classified as ineffective does not have a credential, but may have a short-term permit or waiver, like a provisional internship permit, a substitute teaching permit, or might not have any credential or permit at all. This could also be a teacher who has a credential but is misassigned without a waiver. Like I said earlier, ineffective is a state level data label that, in this case, reflects the teacher's credentialing status, but isn't actually reflective of any specific information on an individual teacher's effectiveness. The LAUSD ineffective average is 6.2%, about 1,900 teachers, and the California average is 5.5%. As we reflect on these numbers, we must remember that we are looking at one of many factors that goes into what makes a qualified and effective teacher. There is a story behind each number that the number alone does not tell. For example, the intern average, thank you, the intern average is higher than LAUSD and statewide. And because it has a negative impact on the overall clear percentage, we're inclined to view that as a problem. But maybe it is higher because LAUSD has expanded teacher recruitment efforts. Maybe those intern teachers are highly skilled or uniquely positioned to be responsive to their students' needs. There will always be teachers in training in the system, and how successful they are depends on whether the school or district has the resources and capacity to support them. These numbers are also district averages. They don't tell us how intern teachers are distributed across regions and communities. So again, we have to look deeper at these numbers to see if there are inequities. Just a reminder, I'm seeing some chatter. If you do have a question, please use the Zoom Q&A function, and then we'll make sure that either one of my teammates will answer it or I will answer it after I'm done presenting the section. Thank you. So here's an example of how we can look at student access to teachers who are fully authorized to teach them at different schools. We have chosen two LAUSD schools, both of which are similar in terms of size. Both schools have around 400 students enrolled and employ about 15 teachers. But as you can see from the demographics, they serve very different populations of students. School 1 in Region South is rated highest need according to the Student Equity Needs Index, or SENI. It has 97% low-income students, about 25% English learner students, and 15% Black students. School number 2, a lowest need school in Region West, has 30% low-income students, 5% English learners, and 3% Black students. As you can see, 100% of teachers at school number 2 are classified as clear, which means all 415 of those students have access to a fully credentialed and properly assigned teacher, as compared to school number 1 with 87% clear teachers. Though this doesn't tell us everything about the teaching staff at either of these schools, it does suggest that there are barriers to getting teachers to work and stay in high need schools. To see how TAMO data may vary across schools, we first examined the schools with TAMO rates that deviated the most from district and state averages, particularly those with less than 75% of their teachers classified as clear, more than 15% of teachers classified as out of field, more than 5% of teachers classified as interns, and more than 8% of teachers classified as ineffective. As I read through some of our findings, please follow the link or the QR code to access a word cloud where you'll share your responses to this question. When you read these key insights from LAUSD's TAMO data, what words come to mind first? Most schools with high rates of out of field and ineffective are alternative education settings like virtual academies, opportunity schools, continuation schools, and special education schools. 77% of teachers at LAUSD middle schools are categorized as clear, compared to 89% at elementary schools. Schools with high rates of out of field teachers, 15% or more of the teaching staff, were more likely to serve low income students. And secondary schools with high rates of ineffective teachers in math, 8% or more, were more likely to serve higher concentration. Can you go back to the last slide, please? Higher concentrations of Black students. Thank you. We are now, go ahead, if you haven't opened up the word cloud, use the QR code on the screen or use the link that my colleague Karen dropped in the chat and put your word in there. We will let it, if you click it, Maria, I think, or like refresh maybe, we should be able to see the words. Okay. All right, so we're seeing not surprised, inequitable, attract, ineffective, teacher experience, inequality. Yeah, feel free to keep adding words in there that first come to mind when you look at the TAMO data. Okay, great. Oh, okay, I think, yeah. Recruitment. Wow, somebody wrote wow. Yep, I feel that. Okay. So as let me see. Okay. So then after we looked at these kind of high level findings, we then examined TAMO trends among schools with high populations of certain student groups, including Black students, English learner students, and low income students. For these next few slides, you will see the 2022-23 data, which is included in our fact sheet. And because the 23-24 data was released shortly after we published our fact sheet, we have included both side by side, which actually gives us an opportunity to see where the results are different or have remained stagnant and to think about why. For secondary schools with high populations of Black students, we found that students have higher rates of teachers classified as ineffective in math and English language arts. In math, we see a 7 percentage point gap between the Black students, between schools with Black students making up 20% or more of the population, as compared to LAUSD and California averages. In ELA, the difference is smaller, but percentages of uncredentialed teachers remain higher at schools with high populations of Black students. There are some variations in the numbers between 22-23 and 23-24, but overall, the pattern still holds. For schools with high populations of low-income students, the intern percentage remains higher than the LAUSD average, which itself is more than 3 times the California average. In line with the chart from earlier, we see that rates of low-income students and district-wide, that rates for low-income students and district-wide, have increased, while the California average remains about the same. As I mentioned before, this is only one piece of the puzzle. I can look at this and say, it's great to see so many new teachers entering the workforce. I can point out that students in these schools have access to a stable teacher throughout the school year, as opposed to a revolving door of substitutes. Again, this data gives us insight into how many new teachers are entering the teacher workforce, but none about how they are supported, whether they develop into skilled and experienced teachers. And without data on teacher retention, we can't know whether interns like these stay at the school or stayed in the profession in subsequent years. When looking at the schools with high populations of English learner students, a bright spot emerged. Not only is there access to clear teachers higher than the district average and the state average, but the out of field percentage for schools with 40% or more English learner students is a tenth of the district average. This is a reflection of the hard work that LAUSD is doing behind the scenes with the Human Resources Department and the Multilingual Multicultural Education Department, who have prioritized access to clear teachers for multilingual learners in LAUSD. In order to get a sense of the teaching experience and how it varies across demographics, we need to look at the demographics of who makes up the district's teacher workforce. Fortunately, LAUSD makes demographic data publicly available every year. We took a look and learned that in 24-25, LAUSD employed 24,087 teachers, mostly made up of women, with a median age of 46, with the largest group of teachers at the elementary level. We learned that the race and ethnicity of the teachers largely don't reflect the student body, with about 28% of teachers identifying as white versus 10% of students identifying as white. And while the percentage of Black students is comparable to student enrollment, there still aren't enough Black teachers for most LAUSD students to be taught by a Black teacher throughout their TK through 12 education. We're about to open another poll to find out of these data points, which one surprises you the most. So you can choose either the grade level and special education assignment distribution, gender identity of teachers, median age of teachers, number of teachers employed by the district, or the race and ethnicity of teachers and students. So go ahead and put your answers in. I see some answers coming in. Right now, race and ethnicity of teachers and students is winning, closely followed winning, closely followed by grade level and special education assignment distribution. So we'll keep it open for a couple more seconds. Okay. All right. So it looks like the most responses were for race and ethnicity of teachers and students. Yeah, so this is something that is not unique to LAUSD. We see it in across the state and across the nation as well. We often don't see the race and ethnicity of teachers being reflective or representative of student populations. So that one's always something interesting to look at. A few more factors to consider. On the fact sheet, you can find this table adapted from EdVoice Institute that calculates estimated average costs of entering the workforce and teaching for 2 years. This estimated cost of almost $90,000 just for the basics shows a barrier to attracting qualified and talented teachers to the district, as well as to the profession itself. And when someone is weighing whether to become a teacher, they have to consider what it will be like to actually teach, which includes how much money they will be making. We also looked at the LAUSD School Experience Survey, and 84% of respondents reported overall teaching satisfaction. This number takes into account how much a teacher enjoys teaching at their school and how much autonomy they feel they have to implement instructional strategies that meet the needs of their students. But when it came to receiving valuable feedback about their teaching, a relatively high percentage of teachers, 19%, reported that leadership rarely or never provides useful feedback based on their observations. A little later, we're going to be talking to a panel of teachers, mentors, and leaders. So let's see how this connects with their experience. And finally, we looked at the years of teaching experience of the teachers across LAUSD. We learned that the vast majority of the teachers in our district today have been teaching for 10 years or more, while newer teachers don't seem to be staying as long. This almost brings us to our second publication about supporting new teachers to stay and succeed. But before we do that, we want to hear what data you think would be most helpful in understanding the health of the teacher workforce. In order to answer some of the questions we have that would help us fill in the story of what it means to meaningfully assess the health of the teacher workforce, we recommend a systematic effort to track and publish teacher data at the district and state level. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Not only is the data itself important, but also that it is disaggregated, which would allow us to better support teachers across race and ethnicity, school need level, preparation program, multilingual status, and years of experience. In this next poll, we've listed some data points that we think are important to make public in order to really assess how the teaching force is doing. Let's assume all this data is disaggregated by all the items on this list on the slide: school site, content area, race and ethnicity, type of teacher preparation program, semi-quintile, multilingual status, years of teaching experience. Um, so we would be so if it's disaggregated, we would be able to identify trends for different populations of teachers, schools, and students. So please, if you haven't already done so, rank the data points in order of what you think is the most important to be made public. Again, um, for us to kind of get an assessment of the health of the teacher workforce and where some of our openings are. For advocacy, ooh, okay. This one looks like it has a clear one with a lot more responses than the others, which is something I've been asking for. I know I and a lot of advocates here today in the room have been asking for teacher retention and attrition data for years. So hopefully we see that, hopefully California will start doing that. Or the district. It would be great to have it at the district and the state level. So yep, there we go. So you can see the results. Okay. So like I said, teacher retention and attrition data have the highest rank, and then under that, school experience survey and teacher vacancy trends. Okay. Thank you for all of you for participating in the polls. I'm excited to see that we have a lot of questions for me. So I'm going to get working on answering those while we transition to our second publication, Beyond Year One, Supporting New Teachers to Stay and Succeed. I'm thrilled to welcome Miss Aubrey Acosta, a member of the Partnership's Policy Advisory Board and an English, Ethnic Studies, and Journalism teacher at Roosevelt High School in her third year teaching. Aubrey will tell us a little about this new publication and will also facilitate the panel discussion. Welcome, Aubrey.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Aubrey Acosta, and my pronouns are she, her. I am extremely grateful to have begun my teaching career through the Partnership's Teacher Residency Program with Alder Graduate School of Education. Working at a partnership school site, I feel supported and valued. I appreciate the support I have received with the implementation of curriculum, along with professional development opportunities available. With these supports, I have been able to enhance my teaching practice and apply my learning into the classroom. Outside of the classroom, I'm an active member of the Partnership's Policy Advisory Board and have participated in Advocacy Day annually thus far to advocate for educational equity. One of the most influential teachers in my own educational journey was my 12th grade English teacher, Miss Lona, who supported me through the college application process and continued to encourage me throughout my undergraduate studies. Before we get into the panel, let's take a look at some information from the partnership's new publication, Beyond Year One, Supporting New Teachers to Say and Succeed. As Nadia shared, district data suggest that teacher retention seems to decline after 3 years, which mirrors California and national attrition trends. Studies show that about a third of teachers leave within the first 5 years, and turnover is higher in schools serving high poverty communities or high populations of students of color. Too often, we hear from teachers like this one who shared, I technically have a mentor, but she isn't super helpful. She forgets what it's like to be a new teacher. As a new teacher, it can feel overwhelming trying to balance all the excitement and uncertainty, and at times it may feel like you're expected to have all the answers when you are still figuring out things for yourself. In my experience, finding community within your school site and collaborating with others can make all the difference in building yourself up to becoming the best educator you can be. Thriving schools start with thriving adults. When educators' practice grows, student outcomes improve and lasting change takes root. That's why at the partnership, we invest in educator success. When educators feel empowered, connected, and supported, students do too. When educators Sorry. In order to support and retain teachers, partnership schools offer intentional supports for new teachers, including paid new teacher orientation, ongoing professional development, paid mentorship, community days, and external grants to cover school supplies and credentialing costs. But what does it really take for a new teacher to stay fully supported in the first few years of teaching, particularly in a high-need school? We'll hear from our panelists soon, but first, what the new teachers we talked to said they needed were additional time and tools to support their instructional planning and manage administrative tasks, clear and proactive communication about expectations and performance evaluation processes, consistent, actionable, and asset-based feedback, regular mentorship opportunities, and support with classroom management. These are just some of the challenges that a first-year teacher faces. To help us understand the experience a little more, I'd like to introduce our panel. Mrs. Julia Nunez, Assistant Principal at Edwin Markham Middle School, a partnership school in Watts. Ms. Janet Mejia, Mentor Teacher at Markham Middle School. Ms. Michelle Torres, New Teacher at 20th Elementary School, a partnership school in South Los Angeles. Guadalupe Garcia, a student at Santee Education Complex, a partnership school in South Los Angeles. Thank you all for being here today. Our first question is for Guadalupe. I'm sure you can guess what it is. Can you tell us about your favorite teacher you've had so far and what made them so special?
If I had to share my favorite teacher, I would go all the way back to sixth grade in my math and science class, and that would be Miss Sue. She made an effort to connect with her students. She was very kind and understood that we needed collaboration and connection with our classmates. And she would go out of her way in order to make sure every student understand the material that was being taught in her class, and went out of her way as a teacher to make her classroom feel like a safe haven, and tried to make sure feelings of stress were gone immediately after we walked through that door. And she made learning attainable and was really good at noticing if someone was struggling and would be there to help. And personally, all my life, I wasn't really good at math, and I wasn't bad, but I wasn't the best. And it made me feel like, and being in her class made me feel like I could be good at math, because she made me feel like I was ahead, even I was ahead of what she was teaching me. And it made me feel like reading, I could be both good at reading, writing, math, and science. And she made me feel empowered as well, because one time she rewarded me by ordering me food in class once I achieved a 4 on my SBAC.
Thank you for sharing. Next, we'll go to our teachers, Ms. Torres and Ms. Mejia. The partnership reports the partnership report highlights support that new teachers receive, like paid orientation, access to mentors, and professional development. It also covers supports teachers say they may need, including planning time, asset-based feedback, and help with classroom management. What do you consider to be the baseline that teachers receive during their first year?
I can go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Torres, or my students call me Miss Torres. There are two baselines, in my opinion, that are really important as a first year teacher. The first one that I felt that really benefited me was a well-structured paid orientation before the school year begins. I believe in like having dedicated time to learn school procedures, understand like the community, dive into the curriculum, and like meet with like your grade level teams, and just plan and like have like a tremendous like just amount of time with like the people that you're going to be with for the whole school year really did support me. I didn't feel nervous at all. Like I just felt really well prepared. Especially my first week. I have other teacher first year teacher friends. A lot of them were nervous, and to me I just felt excited because I was just ready to teach. I just felt really prepared that the partnership and the school that I'm at right now, currently at 20th, where it was able to give me that. And the second baseline that I think really supported me and other teachers like me, other first year teachers, is like regular access to instructional coaches and mentors. So I not only received that during my master's program with Alder and the partnership, but I also received that now, like as a first year teacher, and I just feel like I'm on the top of my game. Like I really do feel like I'm doing everything that I need to be doing to get my students prepared to take any test that's like coming our way. So those are two of the main things that I think. And oh sorry, and then the last one would be having like dedicated planning and collaboration time. I just feel like once you meet with like your grade level, your instructional coaches, all the people that are there to support you, it really just keeps you on track. And I just feel really supported when I have when I have coaches, when I have like my grade level there by my side supporting me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Miss Mejia. To answer this question, at a minimum, I feel like first year teachers should receive consistent, like structured support that allows them to focus on developing like their strong instructional classroom management foundation. I believe a paid orientation and ongoing mentorship should be the baseline, not just like a one-time event, but a sustained relationship throughout the year. New teachers need dedicated planning time to collaborate with colleagues, just like Ms. Torres said. They need to reflect on lessons. They need to adjust instructions based on student needs. They should also receive an asset-based feedback. So feedback that acknowledges their strengths, because sometimes they're really like their confidence is not all there. That builds them rather than focusing only on areas of improvement. This type of coaching helps build confidence and professional identity. Another thing that's important is that they receive targeted professional development that connects them directly to the classroom realities. You know, sometimes there's PD that it seems great on paper, but they actually need to practice it in life, right? Such as managing like student behavior, engagement strategies, and how to use different modalities in the classroom, and making sure that they know how to differentiate instruction for different student populations. All of this should be part of their first year experience. I believe that when these supports are in place, new teachers are better equipped to focus on student learning. They feel valued as professionals that they are. They build the resilience needed to thrive long term in the classroom and stay in schools that need great teachers the most.
Thank you so much for sharing. Ms. Nunez, as a, or Sorry, Mrs. Nunez, as a school administrator, how do you ensure that new teachers don't slip through the cracks, but feel supported enough to navigate the school systems, relationships, resources, curriculum, expectations, and everything else that comes with being a new teacher? Do you have any tips for school leaders on how to manage and inspire your teachers?
Definitely. I read a document by the TNTP called New Teacher Onboarding and Cultivation. I was put onto that by the partnership, and it was a really good resource, and it really did help us to build out our peer support program. So we started, for example, this past year, we started in July. And I met with our 4 peer coaches and we engaged in professional reading. So we started reading a book called Coach the Person, Not the Problem. And so from there, from reading that book, we really did start to think about our vision for our peer support program. And we landed on a program that would provide a safe and trusting space where teachers felt seen and heard and empowered to really get in and do the work that needs to be done. So our goal has been to welcome our new teachers into the Edwin Markham Middle School community by focusing on relationship building. So we've assigned our teachers a peer coach. We started reading a book called Management in the Active Classroom, and we would act out the scenarios, and we visited classrooms, and we looked at topics such as voice and classroom environment, routines, and classroom management. Those are all things that are critical to success, not just your first year, but every year of teaching. Um, we worked as a team to make sure that our teachers' basic needs were met. And those basic needs were things like getting into the classroom, getting them their keys, getting them all set up. But we also focused on logistics and expectations, like something like signing in and out every day. That's something that a new teacher might not even know they need to do. We talked about providing bell-to-bell instruction and our school-wide rules, for example. And then we really got down to connecting teachers with their departments, connecting our new teachers with our administrative team, our instructional coaches, our support staff, so that they could start building the trusting relationships that teachers need to make it through their first year and beyond, and to really feel a sense of belonging here at Edwin Markham Middle School. Our school-wide focus is really on implementing effective Tier 1 strategies for instruction, social emotional learning, and behavior, because we know that effective Tier 1 strategies help to prevent challenges before they arise, and they promote that positive learning environment. And our focus on Tier 1 strategies promotes the consistent delivery of good teaching. And finally, teachers here at Edwin Markham Middle School have common conference periods. And that really does help to foster collaboration, and it provides them with opportunities to align with our school goals with regard to professional development and initiatives. And that's what it's all about here. We really want that sense of belonging for our teachers. We want that consistency. And we want that coherence here at Edwin Markham Middle School. That's what we strive to do. And we know that providing the structures that we have provided really will help not only our new teachers, but all of our teachers feel like they have a place here at Edwin Markham Middle School. And it's going to make them want to stay.
Thank you, Ms. Nunez, for all the work that you're doing to support new teachers. Ms. Mejia, what practices have you found effective in modeling instructional strategies for new teachers, and how do you balance supporting new teachers to build their confidence and independence with accountability for growth?
So, in mentoring new teachers, I found that modeling by doing is the most powerful approach. We both start on day one. We introduce ourselves as both co-teachers in the classroom to let students know that we both share similar roles and that we should both be treated with the same respect. The resident will observe me first for a few weeks and then notice specific strategies in action, such as how I structure lessons, routines, procedures, facilitate discussions, or differentiate instruction. Slowly, I'll have them jump in to teach for a period after they've seen me model it, and to make sure that they have that confidence that they're just not starting from scratch. And I'm always supporting there. Like, I'm always there to make sure, give them little visuals to say, like, okay, you need to speed it up, you need to slow down. And afterward, we debrief together. We focus on what worked, why it worked, and how they could adapt it to their own style or what needs to be changed for the next period. So gradual release is everything. Starting, with co-planning, co-teaching, then shifting the responsibility to the new teacher as their confidence builds. So I'll never do it if they're not ready yet. They have to be ready. And during this process, I also provide consistent feedback through reflective conversations and goal setting. I make sure that the feedback highlights like their strengths and areas for growth. So it feels supportive, like rather than me just evaluating them and making sure that they are doing something right and build on that. Balancing support with accountability means maintaining clear, shared goals for professional growth. And I check in regularly to measure progress. We celebrate success. We help problem solve challenges. And ultimately, my goal is to empower new teachers to develop their own instructional voice while still maintaining high expectations for student learning.
Thank you for sharing. I know I'm, as a new teacher, very grateful to the mentors that I've had and everything I've been able to learn from them. Guadalupe, when you think about teachers who have made your learning engaging and meaningful, what instructional strategies worked well for you? And what do you think it's important for new teachers to prioritize?
When I think back to the learning strategies that instructional strategies that my teachers use, the ones that worked the best for me was encouraging multiple methods to figure out the answer, as it held me to a higher standard and made sure that I really understood the material and not just memorized it. And also project-based learning also helped me because it allowed me to collaborate and share my thoughts with peers. One example of that project-based learning would be making a pyramid with cups and rubber bands that took place in my science class. And also balancing rigor and student needs, as sometimes students do need to just like interact with other students and like because they're not just a student, and their socio emotional needs need to be met. And also structured writing, like giving scaffolds like sentence starters and restating the question. And as I practiced this more, it allowed me to like implement them into my writing and not need a teacher to give me scaffolds. And what I think a new teacher should prioritize would be offering tutoring and making sure that students don't fall through the cracks, and allowing for their classroom to be a space where it isn't feared, or for a student to hold stress or have stress there.
Thank you for sharing. Ms. Torres, can you tell us about or give us any advice, feedback, and guidance that you received about being successful in your first year and from whom? What kind of feedback has been the most useful for your growth and maybe what hasn't been the most useful?
I love this question. Because every time when I think about feedback, I always refer back to like the students that I'm teaching now. These kids are so special. I just love them so much. Something that I've learned through the residency while I was doing my master's, we did a lot of like going into different classrooms and being able to take ideas from veteran teachers, from new teachers. And one of those ideas that I took was having like a feedback box, and my students are able to give me like they're able to write a note, and it says on the box like if the teacher if it would say something like, if you can tell the teacher anything, what would it be? And every Friday I would look at the box and I'll look at the comments that they'll give me. And one of my favorites that I always tear up was when they'll say, you're really strict, but you care, and that's why I try in your classroom, miss. And that just made me be like, oh my gosh, like that's like the best like feedback I can receive, because it's coming from my student. And I know what student wrote that because I know their writing. And like I do see that they're trying at, and if they're trying, then I can meet them halfway, you know? And that's just one of the most like important feedbacks for me. A second one would be like two senior or veteran teachers. They always offer me advice. They always tell me to give myself grace because I'm very hard on myself. I want everything to go perfect, in the sense that I just want to give like the best experience for my students, just because of the type of communities that they come from. I'm part of those same communities too. And I just want them to know that as a first year teacher, that I care for them. And yeah, so those are the two feedbacks that I received that I felt were helpful. Something that I feel that really hasn't been, how would I say, like good feedback. It's not that it's not good feedback, it's just sometimes sometimes when I'm being observed, um, I'm like getting pulled to the side and they're telling me all this feedback. And sometimes like I have a hard time, how would I say this? Like I have a hard time listening to the feedback, just because like I'm really flustered and I have I get nervous because I'm seeing them observe me, and that's just something that I have to like constantly like be like just getting like get it over with, like just, it's gonna happen. They're gonna come in and they're only here to like support me. So that's just something that I'm working on as a first year, because it's really nerve-wracking, but it's just something that I just kind of have to get used to it. But yeah, that would be my feedback.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. Our next question is for Mrs. Mejia and Mrs. Nunez. What are barriers that experienced and master teachers, such as yourself, face that may cause them to leave the profession? And how can state and local educational agencies address those barriers and increase teacher retention and growth for experienced teachers?
You want
I
me to
can.
go first?
Oh,
Yeah.
you go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, Great question. One of the biggest barriers I feel experienced teachers face is burnout. From increasing demands with limited time or resources, many veteran teachers carry like other leadership responsibilities like ILT, mentor new staff, take on additional duties, and sometimes it's often without reduced workloads or meaningful recognition, and or getting compensated for their time and effort. So over time, sometimes this can lead to fatigue and a sense that expertise isn't valued or you're supported. Another challenge is the lack of career growth opportunities that don't require leaving the classroom. Some master teachers often want to continue impacting students directly, but also influence school-wide practice. But pathways to do that are really not there. Other things like ongoing changes in curriculum, testing requirements, district initiatives, without teacher input can sometimes create frustration and disconnect. I think some ways we can retain and grow experienced teachers at a state and local level is that we have structures in place for like leadership pathways that allow teachers to mentor, lead professional learning, or design curriculum while staying in the classroom. Another one is like reduce teacher loads and offer stipends for mentoring and additional responsibilities, like the Alder program that I'm in currently with the mentee. Authentic teacher voice in decision-making processes, and sustained professional learning that is relevant. It's collaborative and it focuses on instructional innovation rather than compliance. Sometimes that's how it feels. But when teachers feel supported, when they're heard and given opportunities to grow within their profession, they are far likely to remain in education and continue making a lasting impact on students, especially underserved schools.
Yeah, those are all definitely on point. I would add, as far as like the teacher workload, prioritizing common planning periods and opportunities for collaboration. Those are really important ways that we can ensure that teachers stay in the profession. Many hands make light work. So in the school setting, that means providing opportunities, regular opportunities for teachers to get together and collaborate is essential to making sure that teachers feel supported. Another barrier, I think, to keeping teachers in the profession would be lack of administrative support. Which is interesting because I'm an assistant principal, but teachers who don't feel supported by administrators, um, they don't feel like they're being heard or they're being seen when they're dealing with the different challenges that are definitely going to come their way. If they don't feel seen and heard, then they probably will leave the profession, and we don't want that. So, administrators do need to conduct those regular classroom observations, provide that actionable feedback, but also get into classrooms so that you can keep your finger on the pulse of the school. You've got to know the culture and the climate of the school so that you can make it an inviting place for all teachers. Another barrier might be challenging student behavior. You know, coming back from the pandemic, these kids are a little different now. So we've got to really support teachers and make sure that they have the tools that they need to be able to deal with the behavior challenges that they will see. So we need to prioritize positive behavior interventions and supports. We need to prioritize building relationships with students and families to make sure they feel connected to the school and to the adults at school. And we need to provide opportunities for professional development involving social emotional learning and restorative practices. I think those are all, combined with what Mrs. Mejia has said, I think those are all barriers that may drive people from the profession, but with the solutions that we've offered, I think that we can really look forward to retaining a lot of great teachers and a great profession.
Thank you all for sharing all of your insight. If anyone has any questions for our panelists, please add them to the Q&A.
All right. If we don't have any questions, then we can move on to our next section. And please feel free if you do have questions. We have included our contact information at the end, so you can also reach out to us. Thank you all, panelists, so much for your time and for your insights. We are so grateful that you came today and were able to share such really meaningful insights. So, what's next? In both publications, we give recommendations about how to improve systems to better support and retain teachers in LAUSD. This is a summary of those recommendations, and you can find more information in the publications themselves. From increasing data transparency to strengthening induction supports and systemic changes to allow for teacher growth and collaboration, we have lots of ideas of how to improve, and we're going to spend the next 15 minutes or so brainstorming an action plan. So based on your registration information, we've put you into affinity groups, but if you feel like you should be in another group, then please let us know. And if you require interpretation, but you don't have an interpreter in your breakout room, then please click the Ask for Help button. So just let us know, and then either I or one of my teammates can help you. So for action planning, depending on if you are a teacher, an education policy advocate, a student or family member, school or district leader, or other educational partner, we'll ask you to discuss your corresponding question on this slide. And we just put them into the chat as well, so you'll be able to access them when you're in the breakout room.
We talked about how the scheduling of lesson planning for new teachers should really be centralized so that all new teachers can lesson plan together during the school day, not after school, with perhaps one or more veteran teachers who can support and share best practices. We also talked about you're in that stage of creativity, and so giving new teachers like a tip every so often, like a tip of the week, and then following up with them on how they are putting that tip into practice. So also having a community of practice would be exciting. And then Miss Hamilton just kind of said at the end, make sure teachers get some encouragement every day.
Thank you. I see some feedback in the chat that I'm going to read out loud. So thank you to, well, this is from Claire. Thank you to my breakout room, Mrs. Nunez. The proof is in the pudding at Markham. Retention has risen, and Markham has an incredibly strong model for new teacher support. And wondering if somebody from that group is available. Thank you, Wendy, to share out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, took some notes in the slide, but some common themes that came up was time, making sure that teachers are able to access the time, whether it's through like a prep period, common planning time, a late start, because as Ms. Nunez said, there's never enough time. And time is really what allows teachers to come together to create these lessons and to debrief and to really learn in a community. And then the other question that came up was around building capacity of administrators. How do we really think about the building of capacity of administrators so that they're prepared to really create an environment where new teachers feel supported? Because as evidenced with the what we heard from Markham, when administrators and there's a system to pour into new teachers, they will then want to contribute back to the school environment and climate.
Thank you, Wendy. And then I will invite any or all of the panelists to share out any takeaways that you had from your breakout rooms.
Hi, Nadia. Hi, everyone. I'd love to jump in and share the perspective and some of the things that I heard from some of our community members who have also been families and have had kiddos at one of our one or multiple schools in our network. And so one of the things that the first thing that came up was how can us as a network think about compensation to our teachers, right? Like, how do we make it competitive? How do we make it appealing for them to want to be teachers, specifically within our network? So pay was one thing that came up. The second thing was knowledge, this concept of like knowledge is power, right? And so are we doing a good job about sharing out this publication with the entire network, right? And when we say the entire network, is the entire school community, which includes out of classroom teachers, families, and so like partners, so many support and so many systems of support that exist within our schools. And then lastly, which I really love so much, was the idea of like providing mental health support to our teachers. So how are we providing and prioritizing our teachers' well-being? And so yeah, I hope I did my group of service, and those were some of the three very important and amazing things that came out of that conversation.
Thank you so much. Any final thoughts before I pass it back to Angelica to close us out for today? Okay.
Thank you, Nadia. And thank you, everyone, for your participation, your time today, and joining us on this really important topic. Want to be able to support our teachers, and these spaces for learning really help sustain those efforts to advance equity for our students. As we move forward, let's turn what we learned today into action. Each of us has a role in making sure every teacher feels prepared, supported, and valued. Please visit our website to learn more about the partnership and to find both of these publications under the tab Equity Alerts. Thanks again for all that you do collectively to support teachers. We hope to connect soon in this work. And please take good care. Until next time.